Thank you all for coming out to the Greenway Spring Breakfast. It's great to see so many people. Hopefully grown-ups can begin migrating in under the tent. There's plenty of seats up here near the front if you'd like to sit, but you're welcome to stand. Good morning, my name is John Hoekstra, and I'm honored to be the Executive Director of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust, and I'm pleased to get to open our program this morning. Before we get started, the very first thing that I want to announce is if you are a youth who does not want to sit and listen to grown-ups talk, but not if you're an adult who doesn't want to hear grown-ups talk. If you're a youth, Sarah, right over here in the blue shirt waving, is going to take you out for an experience. So if you would like to go out and do something with Sarah, please head on over, but we ask you to bring a parent so that Sarah knows to look for them if your parent goes missing after the event. All right? So if kids want to go, head over that way. We've got a great, our education program has put together a great activity for you, so I encourage you to take the opportunity. Look at that, awesome turnout. Well, while the kids head out on their adventure, I would like to open our program. How many of you here this morning are attending a Greenway event for the very first time? Excellent. Welcome. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're getting to meet some new people. The purpose of today's event is to celebrate and support the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area. The Greenway National Heritage Area was designated by Congress in 2019 after nearly a decade of advocacy. National Heritage Areas are nationally significant landscapes where natural, cultural, and historic resources embody and help to tell a unique story, or a unique chapter in the American story. The Greenway NHA is one of just 62 NHAs across the country and one of only 2 in the Pacific Northwest, the other one being the Washington Maritime NHA, and Alex is here somewhere from Maritime. We're happy to have a partner in NHA world here in Washington. The Mountains to Sound Greenway NHA is known for its natural beauty, for its diverse landscapes, and its rich history and heritage. Stretching nearly 100 miles from Seattle to Ellensburg, the Greenway includes vibrant urban centers, verdant forests, and pristine wilderness areas. It provides access to nature for people of all ages and abilities. It sustains working farms, working forests that produce local products and provide clean air and clean water. And the Greenway protects historic and cultural sites in spectacular natural settings. The Greenway that we see today is both a reflection of our past and its inspiration for our future. The Greenway tells stories that begin long before anybody thought to call it the Greenway. The stories begin with Native people who have lived, traveled, and traded across this landscape for millennia. The eyes, voices, and teachings of these first people impart understanding about the heritage area from time immemorial to today. Geology and climate help shape this dramatic landscape of mountains and rivers and coastlines. Rivers and valleys provide corridors for movement, for wildlife migration, for fish passage, and for human travel. The rails and the roads that pass through the Greenway have brought, over the decades, diverse people from all corners of the world, each of whom who has come here found some connection to nature and contributed in some way to shaping both the landscape that we see and the culture that we share. And our cultural and natural heritage inform our future resilience and the restoration of the natural ecosystems all around us that sustain life both for nature and for us. For more than 30 years, the Greenway Trust has set the table for collaborative conservation of forests, farms, parks, and open spaces, connected by trails to our still growing, but not so much sprawling communities. Now, as the coordinating entity for the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area, We are proud to work with tribes, government agencies, businesses, nonprofits, and community groups to conserve and enhance the Greenway landscape, to preserve its history and heritage, and to help share the stories of its diverse people. From the tribes who have always been here and whose wisdom we are learning from today, to the myriad settlers, immigrants, and refugees who've come here and created their connection and their stories in the Greenway landscape. At your table today, you should find some really lovely brochures that offer you more information about the Greenway landscape and about the work of the Greenway Trust. I hope you'll take a chance to look through that. We're really excited this morning to be hosting this event outdoors at Lake Sammamish State Park. This is a place where our field program is based just on the other side of the trees here, and we are proud to have been a partner of state parks for some 20 years, working side by side in slowly but surely returning undeveloped areas of this park to natural conditions and restoring crucial salmon habitat along Issaquah Creek that flows for nearly a mile through the park. It's work that's been done year by year, acre by acre, with the help of hundreds upon hundreds of volunteers. How many of you have come out to volunteer for a Greenway event before? Thank you. Many hands make light work, but in the case of the Greenway, many hands make possible the work of literally decades. So thank you for being part of that. The restoration and enhancement of Lake Sammamish State Park is in many ways a microcosm of the whole Greenway, where a holistic, long-term vision motivates collaboration across sectors and across communities and sustains our collective commitment to each other and to this place. You can see the first steps of that in the freshly cleared fields where invasive blackberry has been removed and native trees have been planted, and they're beginning to put down roots and grow towards the future. You can also see it in the earlier efforts now coming to fruition. Many of the forests, those of you that went on the bird walk this morning, all those trees we were walking through, those are all have been planted as part of the restoration program. These trees, now 15 to 20 years old, are providing habitat for wildlife. They're stabilizing the stream bank. They're cooling the waters for baby salmon and adult salmon coming back. And it's offering outdoor education opportunities for students and park visitors alike. This morning's event kicks off the Explore the Greenway season. I had a great time. My wife Jen and I had a wonderful time with about 20 some of you on a bird walk early this morning. Thank you for joining us. I hope you had as much fun as we did. I know many others of you are signed up to go on an excursion after the breakfast. If you haven't signed up for one, don't worry. I think you can grab a Greenway staff member at the table. We've still got some space. It's a great chance to get out and see a part of the Greenway, be out with somebody from the Greenway staff or Greenway board who knows it, can help tell you some of the stories behind how it came to be. I also hope to see many of you out on our sort of big signature events this summer. We have on, let's see if I have the dates written down here. Excuse me. June 17th, we have the Yakima River Float. An awesome chance to see the Yakima River Canyon starting in near Cle Elum and down towards Thorpe. August 5th, we have the Snoqualmie Rail Tunnel. It's a classic bike ride. You start at Snoqualmie Pass through a 2-mile-long train tunnel and then downhill the rest of the day to some refreshments. Registration for both of those is open. There's still space available. And then in September, we'll be putting together a Hike the Greenway Day. So some really fun chances to get out, explore, meet other people that care about and support the Greenway, and learn some more about this place. The Greenway is honored to partner. I guess now I want to turn to acknowledge some sponsors that have helped make this morning possible. The Greenway Trust is honored to partner with many local businesses, both small and large, who make it a priority to invest in conservation of the Greenway NHA landscape and to help preserve its rich history and heritage. Please join me in thanking our sponsors of today's event. Your support makes this gathering possible. It helps us raise the funds needed to do our work. And it sends a strong message that stewardship of the Mountains of Sound Greenway is good for the environment, it's good for our communities, and it's good for your business. So thank you to our presenting sponsors this morning, Greenvelope, Amazon, the Boeing Company, and Waste Management of Washington. Thank you very much. I also want to say a big thank you to our leadership sponsors, Cascadia Law Group and REI Co-op. I know REI Group is back there. And our friends of the Greenway, DCG Watershed Group, Merrill Images, and Ray Lapine. Thank you, Ray. I now have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker this morning, with whom I was right here in the park just a month ago when we got together with folks from the Trust for Public Land and the Greenway to celebrate Earth Day by pulling out some blackberries. It was a fun morning. We made space for some of those little native trees to get their start. Representing Washington's awesome 8th in the U.S. Congress, Dr. Kim Schreier is a determined and passionate advocate for conservation and climate action, for the people and public lands of our state, and for the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area. Please join me in giving a warm Greenway welcome to Representative Kim Schreier.
Wow, that was a really warm welcome. Thank you very much. And John, thank you for your very warm welcome. And I'm so glad that all of you are here today supporting the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust. You made a great decision. It is such a delight for me to be here at the 2nd Annual Greenway Breakfast and on such a beautiful day. Around here, you never know if you're going to need a tent for sun or for rain. So good decision. As you heard, I represent Washington's 8th Congressional District in Washington, D.C. And while I may be just a bit biased, it is my personal opinion that this district is the most beautiful in the entire country. A few residents of the 8th District. My colleagues, by the way, from Hawaii, Guam, Alaska, they disagree. Sometimes Susan Delbene disagrees, but I stand my ground here. And of course, you know, this district stretches from Mount Rainier to Lake Chelan, and of course, right in the heart of the 8th is the Mountains to Sound Greenway. And that is what we are celebrating here. You know, thinking back, I first decided to run for Congress in 2017, so that's what you do when the election's in 2018. And one of the reasons that I ran was this feeling of urgency with an 8-year-old son at home to address climate change, which wasn't happening, to protect public lands and waters, and to ensure that our children and our children's children and generations that we'll never know will have the same opportunities that we do to cherish these great outdoors. And these goals have remained my North Star, and they are completely aligned with the goals and the mission of Mountains to Sound Greenway, as you've heard. So since being elected in 2018, it's been such an honor to work side by side with Mountains to Sound Greenway on a whole host of issues, both on the ground, as you heard, pulling blackberries and planting trees, but also in Washington, D.C., writing and passing laws and fighting for funding to support the efforts of Mountains to Sound Greenway, along with other partners like the Trust for Public Land, Nature Conservancy, Washington Trails Association, and REI. So as you heard, Mountains to Sound Greenway represents 1.5 million acres all surrounding the I-90 corridor and stretching all the way from Seattle to Ellensburg, and most of that is in the 8th District. Now this stretch of land, now all around I-90, the mountains, rivers, forests, farms, these have been cherished for generations. And the tribal nations have inhabited and cared for and fished and hunted in these lands for millennia. And this is a really special place. I want you to all close your eyes for just a moment. And I want to have you think about what the first image, like you're doing well at closing your eyes, not all of you though, close those eyes. And I want you to think about what the first image is that pops into your brain when you think about Mountains to Sound Greenway. Like, is it the middle fork of the Snoqualmie that's right nestled in the foothills of the Cascades? One that looks like your logo? Is it maybe the Teanaway Community Forest and the trails that connect Roslyn, Ronald, and Cle Elum? Some waterfalls, some forests, maybe some hay fields? Fly fishing the Yakima River or the Snoqualmie. Maybe you pick berries in the Snoqualmie Valley. Right here, Lake Sammamish State Park and Issaquah Creek. Or even the wildlife corridor that passes over I-90 at the top of Snoqualmie Pass so that animals can enjoy this greenway the way we do. So these are all parts, you can open your eyes, these are all parts of the Mountains to Sound Greenway National Heritage Area. It was fun to imagine all those in your head, wasn't it? I want to give you a bit of history. Mountains to Sound Greenway was first designated in 1991 with this goal, a very noble goal of preserving a healthy balance between people and nature and conserving public lands. And then in 1998, I-90 became the first interstate highway to be designated a National Scenic Byway. And that brought national attention, yes. So that brought national attention and eyes and more interest and more visitors. And then, as you heard in 2019, just months after being sworn into Congress, we passed a major public lands conservation package in a bipartisan way. And in that bill, we designated Mountains to Sound Greenway as a National Heritage Area and permanently. We also permanently authorized the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that's critical. Because these 1.5 million acres, they're not just beautiful, they capture the culture and recreation and economy and history and people of this area. And they tell a story, really lots of stories, depending on where you visit and who you are. That designation as National Heritage Area has brought even more visitors to this magnificent land and allowed Mountains to Sound Greenway to share its stories with far more people and then allow those people to create their own stories, boosting our already robust recreation economy. Now, our family in particular relishes the trails right here in Issaquah, Snoqualmie, North Bend, and my husband and I sometimes escape to fly fish the Snoqualmie and Yakima rivers. And as a member of Congress, I've been out on the trails with conservation groups to see firsthand the work of Mountains to Sound Greenway that brings more people into nature, but does it in a safe way to allow more people to experience it, but to protect nature at the same time. It's really incredible. And think about some of the trails that you know well, like Rattlesnake Ledge trail improvements to make them safer, and the reworking of the Middle Fork Snoqualmie River Trail, the bridge, the Teanaway Community Forest, even the trail up to Cuckoo Point where we had some erosion and needed improvement of the trail. I even brought the Undersecretary of the USDA out to the district so that she could see why it was so important to fund these areas. And then there's the legislation. One of the ways that I've been able to help is something called Legacy Roads and Trails. This was not my project. It actually was established by Representative Norm Dix, who might be here today. Are you here? Not here today, but generally at a lot of these events. And the idea of this Legacy Roads and Trails was that we really needed a separate bucket of money for roads in national forests that needed attention, because what always happened was that the biggest, most expensive projects got all the attention, and we needed this special line of funding that would prioritize projects that protect water, streams, and salmon habitat. And suddenly we had this funding stream for culverts and for preventing erosion and for turning some of these decommissioned roads into foot trails. And this was a big win for Washington State and Mountains to Sound Greenway and for salmon. And that program didn't get funding, kind of got forgotten about under the last administration. But we brought it back. and we got funding, and that is making life better for all kinds of restoration. So one of the other things I've really focused on is helping our salmon population. Right here in Lake Sammamish State Park, we got community funding to help with habitat restoration for salmon passage to make it a safe place, a shaded place with cooler waters. And another one is Howard Hansen Dam. And I actually did not look at the map closely enough to know if Howard Hansen Dam falls into the Mountains to Sound Greenway, but I think it does, so I'm going to mention it. This is a non-controversial project that will allow for access of salmon to somewhere between 60 and 100 miles, because it depends how you calculate that, of totally pristine watershed that is not accessible right now because of this dam. The project got put on hold because it was too expensive. And when we passed the infrastructure law that you all know about, I fought to make sure that a big chunk of money, like hundreds of millions of dollars, would come right here to Howard Hansen Dam that stands to do more for Chinook salmon populations than any other project. That's a clap line. Now, as we head into the summer months, and it's already super hot, we are all worried about wildfire season. And many of the 1.5 million acres in the Mountains to Sound Greenway are national forests. And after 100 years of fighting every fire, these forests are overcrowded. They are a tinderbox. You add to that a warming climate and some gypsy moths, I think called sponge moths now, and you've got forests that are at very high risk for catastrophic fires, and we've seen them. And that's why it was so important to me to put forest restoration and protection into several big bills just last year. One was the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And I made sure that when we were thinking about infrastructure, we weren't just thinking about roads and bridges, but also about our natural infrastructure. And we got several billions, with a B, dollars for wildfire risk reduction, forest health, and ecosystem restoration. And then similarly, in the Inflation Reduction Act, we got hundreds of millions of dollars set aside for conservation projects. And we are working now to make sure that those do not get clawed back into the Farm Bill, so stay tuned. We passed the Great American Outdoors Act to invest in public lands and do much needed repairs, a backlog of repairs at our national parks. And just recently, right here close to home, my office was able to secure a total of nearly $11.5 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law for wildfire prevention and mitigation, including $10 million for the Kittitas County Conservation District, which was the largest grant in the entire country. And then there are the community projects. I talked about one right here at Lake Sammamish State Park in Issaquah Creek. But another one we got in 2021, and this was for wildfire mitigation, specifically around Roslyn. And you all know Roslyn, surrounded by forest at very high risk. Well, this got about $1 million for brush removal and prescribed fire to protect the forest surrounding Roslyn and make sure that that city is protected should there be a forest fire in the area. Let me just also say it was really fun to get out there with a drip torch and participate in the prescribed burn. One of the perks of being a member of Congress is that you get to do a lot of really cool things. Before I close, I just want to mention to all of you the importance of getting outdoors and into nature for our own health and well-being. There's that pediatrician in me. REI has a special program for veterans with PTSD. It gets them outdoors and it helps. And we're talking every day about this generation of teenagers who are suffering from anxiety and depression. And I'm not saying that getting outdoors is the full cure, but it's a big part of the solution, off the phones and into nature. So get outside this summer. Now, personally, when I close my eyes and I think about the Mountains to Sound Greenway, I think about a big swath of the 8th Congressional District. And I drive this gorgeous scenic byway on a regular basis, and it just never gets old any season. I tell people, as you know, that I have the most beautiful congressional district in the entire country, and I stand by that decision. And I feel like a district like this one really helps me keep my focus on the importance of conservation of our public lands, forest lands, and, by the way, farmland. So I will continue to partner with you and make sure that generations to come will enjoy the same natural beauty and culture and heritage that we all enjoy today. And I want to thank you all for supporting the tremendous work of Mountains to Sound Greenway, both with your pocketbooks and with gloves and shovels. Let's meet again soon, maybe here pulling out some blackberry bushes, maybe on the trails, maybe doing trail restoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. That was fantastic. And thank you both for the personal efforts and commitment and support that you provided to the Greenway, but also just your leadership on the national stage. It takes all of us, from the shovels and the gloves in the field to the halls of Congress, to make this happen, and we're really glad and grateful to have you out there fighting for us, so thank you. All right, next up, I am pleased to introduce our youth speaker this morning, and I'm looking, where is Adai? I'm going to invite her to start making her way up. There she is. All right, come on forward while I introduce you. Adai Gonzalez is a junior at Highline School District. She was part of the very first cohort of Burien Green Teens, a summer internship program offered by the Greenway Trust in partnership with the city of Burien and Dirt Corps. Adai quickly stood out for her hard work and her thoughtfulness and her commitment to her goals, exactly the things you would expect to see in a future leader. And so I'm pleased to welcome Adai to the stage and look forward to hearing what she has to share with us this morning.
Good morning to everybody. It's very nerve-wracking being up here. I'm already sweating. Well, I want to introduce myself. My name is Adai Gonzalez, and I'm a junior at Highline High School. I am very honored to be here in front of a lot of people speaking to you guys about my experience and the focus I had with the Burien Green Team and the opportunity of a different perspective in life. Not only in life, but the different perspective I had before and now with the Green Teens. I'm representing the Green Teens. Last year was our first year of doing restoration work, survival rings. We had a couple challenges with the landscape, that there is no salmon going through the water, the little river, because of how the water is, the temperature, how there isn't a lot of shade. The water's not as high as it's supposed to be for the salmon to go through. And we also had a lot of blackberries that we needed to take out, but we did the job. And I also wanted to invite you guys to have the perspective I have now of life, of the world, to take care of our home, because it's the only one we're gonna have. It's the only one that is gonna stay with us. And if we are destroying our life, our world, our home, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna live? Where will we stay? As little as you guys see a little motion of picking up a trash, throwing the garbage where it's supposed to be, not leaving your cigarettes on the floor, making sure that if you use the park, make sure you leave it clean as it is, because there's only one home There's only one world. And if we're destroying it, where are we gonna go? So I want you guys to think about the world that we're in right now. And it's very destroyed because of the same decisions that we've made during the past years. That we don't, before, like I said, the perspective I had, I didn't really put my mind to it. I wasn't as much interested in climate change, the problems we're having now in reality. And when I had the opportunity of hearing how my guides were telling me about climate change, about all the difficulties that we're going through in life, I thought to myself, am I gonna be part of the change? Or am I gonna destroy my world, my home, the only one I'm gonna have? So maybe next time you see a trash, next time you go to a park, make sure you leave our world how it is and not make it worse. And remember that we as teenagers are the better future for a tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Adai. That was fantastic. Really inspiring. It's great to know that our future is going to be in good hands, and I'm glad that we are all here to support you as you begin your career and journey to help take care of this place. Lindsay, tough act to follow. I'm now going to introduce our final speaker today, Issaquah resident, former executive director of the Issaquah Alps Trails Club, member of the Greenway Trust Board of Directors, and passionate advocate for the Greenway, Lindsay Frickle.
Hello, everyone. Wow, I'm truly humbled and honored to follow such impressive speakers, Kim, especially Adai. Thank you for your powerful words and inspiration. I see a lot of friendly and familiar faces out here. My kids just showed up after swim lessons. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm a new member of the Mountains to Sound Greenway Board, but I am not new to the Greenway. I grew up in Maple Valley on the Cedar River, and I was so fortunate to get to experience childhood surrounded by nature. And if anyone spent any time on the Cedar in the 80s during spawning season, I think you'll agree that being so close to nature can smell quite potent that time of year. But jokes aside, my family remembers a rippled red carpet of spawning salmon that spread across our bend of the Cedar River every October. Unfortunately, our salmon runs have reached record lows these past few years. And kids these days are lucky to see even a flash of crimson in the water when the spawners come home in the fall. With multiple cities and agencies involved in the watershed, this is just one example of how important the Mountains to Sound Greenway is to our natural resources. The Greenway staff and volunteers work year-round to conserve and restore our natural environment, advocate for better stewardship of our public lands, working with multiple interest groups to restore, protect, and plan for the future of this incredible landscape that we get to call home. So just like the salmon, these public lands belong to the people of this community. And we are the ones who can ensure that our hard-earned natural landscape survives. And I say hard-earned because the truth is none of our gorgeous Greenway, this unique geographic corridor of connected ecosystems that extends from the Puget Sound all the way to Ellensburg, would be here today if it weren't for the admirable efforts of those who came before us. Growing up here, honestly, I took it for granted, like many of us do. This Greenway is now a national heritage area, and it comes with a long history of advocacy and philanthropy. So let's just do an exercise together. Is there anyone in the audience who will stand up who has been supporting the Greenway as a volunteer or supporter for over 30 years. I know you're out there. Dave. How about 20 years? Over 10 years? Thank you. And thank you for giving this incredible group of dreamers and doers your round of applause, because I would like you to find them after this and thank them in person, because we owe them a debt of gratitude for fighting for the lands that we get to love here so much. But our work here is far from done. As the mother of 2 little hikers, meadow frolickers, and now blossoming skiers, I feel so fortunate that Mark and I get to raise Teddy and Lillian here in Issaquah, just steps from beautiful trails, diverse ecosystems, and the entire Mountains to Sound Greenway to explore. Spanning nearly 100 miles and covering over 1.5 million acres, I'm confident that our community of environmentalists and public lands advocates, outdoor enthusiasts, that's all of you, will continue to honor the past and look to the future. So my challenge to you today is to think about what means the most to you in the Greenway. Is it that first deep breath of fresh air after work? Is it the laughter you hear and the joy you see in your children's faces when they're experiencing nature? Is it the solitude and introspection our wildlands provide in an increasingly overstimulating world? For me, when I'm in nature, time slows down. I become more present with my kids, more centered and grateful. My gratitude for this natural beauty that surrounds us is what inspired me to join the board, and it's what inspires our family to give back. It's also what brings me to the mic here today, to ask you to join me in supporting the Mountains to Sound Greenway with a generous donation. More than half of the Greenway's budget relies on the generous support of donors like you. And it ensures that our public lands remain protected, preserved, and well stewarded in a way that will give our community's next generation the same gift that we have all received. I hope you'll make a donation today that is meaningful to you. So look for those QR codes on all of your tables and helpful envelopes if you're a check writer. And please join us for some exploring after the program too. I'll see you on the trails. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you to all of you for supporting the work of the Greenway Trust. It really does make a difference, both the time you might volunteer and the gifts you might give this morning. So thanks for taking some time to consider a gift that's meaningful to you.